They didn't sleep together at first. No, my mother was smarter than that. She made him fall out of love with me first. And by the time I realized she'd replaced me in his heart, she'd already replaced me in his bed. They say your mother is your first protector, the one who shields you from the world's venom. But mine? Mine spoon-fed it to me, one drop at a time, while kissing my husband's cheek in front of me. My name is Clarissa Vaughn. I'm 38. And 3 months ago, my husband of 12 years walked out the door without a suitcase, without a goodbye, without a damn trace of remorse. He said one sentence before he left. Just one. Your mother was right about you. At first, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, staring at the oak door as it clicked shut behind him. The silence afterward was so sharp, it felt like the whole house inhaled and held its breath. I remember the coffee pot gurgling behind me, oblivious to the fact that my life had just collapsed with the finality of a slammed door. But the real betrayal had been fermenting long before that, quietly, slowly, like a gas leak you don't smell until the spark lights it all up. Looking back, the signs were there. Subtle digs my mother, Eleanor, would say when she visited. He's such a good man, Clarissa, try not to push him away like you do everyone else. Or, you never make time for him anymore. No wonder he's always texting someone. I brushed them off like lint from a sweater. She was just overbearing. Controlling. I never imagined she was grooming him. Whispering into his ear like a snake with lipstick. When Jeremy left, she offered her shoulder to cry on. I refused. She pretended to be hurt. I'm still your mother, Clarissa. And that's when the sickness really started to rise in my gut. Something felt wrong. Too smooth. Too prepared. Like she already knew he would leave, and welcomed it. 2 weeks ago, I found the first letter. I wasn't snooping. I was organizing old boxes in the attic, trying to distract myself from checking Jeremy's empty side of the bed. One box was labeled baby shower, but inside, beneath the sonogram prints and crumpled tissue paper, was a faded envelope. Yellowed. Delicate. The handwriting wasn't mine. Or Jeremy's. It was my mother's. Jeremy, you don't see it yet, but you and I are the same. She'll never love you the way I could. Let her ruin herself. When she finally does, I'll be waiting. I don't remember dropping the letter. But I remember the rage. I remember screaming so loud the attic walls felt like they recoiled. My mother, my own mother, had written love letters to my husband. Had spent years dripping poison into our marriage, convincing him I was unstable, selfish, unlovable. And he believed her. But I didn't go to her with the letter. Not yet. I needed more. I needed to know how far it went. Over the next few nights, I tore through boxes, drawers, files. What I found was more than letters. I found recordings, voicemails my mother left him in the middle of the night. Photos of them together, too close. A receipt for a hotel room. Dated a year before our divorce. My stomach turned. But I kept going. Like a woman possessed. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Eleanor's 65th birthday was coming up. She was planning a grand garden party, her legacy event, she called it. All her friends. Her reputation. Her curated life. I let her believe I'd be there with a smile. I even offered to help with the video montage she wanted, Memories of a Matriarch, she titled it. But I had a different montage in mind. I edited every voice message, every letter, every stolen photo into a 7-minute confession of her obsession. Her betrayal. Her manipulation. And her affair. With my husband. I timed it perfectly. Right after the cake, right before the toast. Her name lit up in cursive on the screen. The audience clapped. And then the footage began. You should have seen her face. You should have heard the gasps. And that was just the beginning. Because what no one at that party knew, not her friends, not Jeremy, not even Eleanor herself, was that my revenge wasn't digital. It was legal. Financial. Surgical. I had forged the perfect blade. And at that party, I only took my first swing. The thing about public humiliation is that it doesn't land all at once. No, first comes the confusion. Then the whispers. Then the slow, collective turning of heads. And last, the silence. Thick, accusing, unforgettable silence. That's what followed after the screen went dark and the words, "From your daughter," with love, flickered in white script over black. Eleanor didn't faint. I almost wanted her to. No, she stood frozen by her rose-draped cake, one hand still holding the engraved cake knife like it was a weapon that had suddenly turned on her. Her smile had curdled into something grotesque, lips twitching, jaw clenched, eyes scanning the crowd like she could erase every witness by sheer force of will. Then came the questions. A stunned "Was that real?" from her best friend Marcy. Is this some kind of joke? From one of the city councilmen she'd charmed for decades. My cousin Mark was already backing toward the exit like a man escaping a crime scene. Jeremy wasn't there, thank God, but his brother Liam was, and I caught him staring at the screen even after it went black, face pale with horror. Me? I just stood near the gift table, sipping champagne, calm as spring rain. I wore a red dress on purpose. The kind of red that makes people nervous in polite company. The kind my mother said was too loud for her garden aesthetic. I chose it because I wanted to look like war. Eleanor didn't say a word to me that night. Not when the guests started to trickle out in awkward clusters. Not when someone knocked over a vase. Not even when her precious white fondant cake began to sag in the summer heat. She just walked past me with that same tight-lipped poise she'd mastered since I was a child. And for once, I didn't feel like the child in the room. I felt like the storm she should have never provoked. But I knew she wouldn't stay quiet for long. Sure enough, the next morning at 6:03 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it on speaker while folding laundry. "Clarissa," came her voice, tight, shaky, still trying to control the narrative. "That was cruel. Unnecessary. You've embarrassed me in front of everyone I know." I didn't respond. I just let her talk. "I don't know where you got those fabrications. But whatever your twisted little mind thinks it saw, I can assure you, there was never anything inappropriate between me and Jeremy." I smiled. Because she still thought I only had what I showed them. That was the fun part. I had so much more. You see, after I found the first letters, I didn't just dig up evidence, I made copies. I logged into her private cloud account using the same password she'd used since 2003, Violet Rose 65. Predictable, like always. Inside? Dozens of unsent emails to Jeremy. Some of them read like romance novels written by a delusional schoolgirl. Some were darker. One said she'd dreamed about him while her daughter slept in the next room. Another claimed he would have been happier as my husband than hers. And then came the bank statements. The shared hotel reservations. One transaction at a lingerie boutique, billed discreetly under her foundation fund. She didn't know yet that I had already forwarded it all, to someone she feared more than me. Her lawyer. Because Eleanor had an estate. A fortune, really. My late father had left her everything, and she prided herself on guarding it like a queen with a dragon's hoard. But her prenup with my father had a morality clause. One that forbade extramarital affairs or immoral conduct tied to inheritance distribution. Guess who helped draft it? My godfather. A retired judge. Who was also at that party. By Monday, Eleanor received a letter from the estate board questioning her eligibility as sole beneficiary due to suspected moral breach. I didn't have to send it anonymously. I signed it myself. Clarissa Vaughn, daughter and legal heir. Her silence after that lasted 4 days. On the 5th, she showed up at my door. Uninvited. Hair perfectly pinned, red lipstick drawn sharp, pearl earrings trembling slightly as she spoke. You've made your point. Now let's fix this before it destroys everything. I stared at her. Fix it? I said, stepping aside to let her into the foyer. Oh, Mother. You still don't get it. I didn't do this to destroy you. I did this to begin. She blinked. Begin what? I handed her the latest envelope from my lawyer, an official notice of claim to contest her inheritance rights and trigger the clause. She opened it with shaking fingers. Begin the part, I whispered, leaning in, where you finally learn what it feels like to lose everything while smiling for the crowd. She dropped the envelope. And that's when I knew. She hadn't even touched the knife yet. But the next chapter? That's where it sinks in. My mother used to be a beauty queen. The kind with calculated smiles and a soft southern voice that could sell sin as salvation. People used to say she had grace. What they didn't realize is that grace can be weaponized, and Eleanor Vaughn wielded it like a scalpel. I knew she wouldn't sit quietly after the garden party humiliation. I expected retaliation. I just didn't expect it to come with flowers and lawsuits. The bouquet arrived first, white lilies, her favorite. A card slipped between the stems read, "Forgiveness is the scent the violet leaves on the heel that crushed it." No name. Just a quote. But the message was clear. Eleanor thought she could crush me and still be admired for the scent. I let the flowers rot in their vase. Then came the letter. Certified mail. My stomach dropped when I saw the return address, Simmons and Hale LLP, her lawyers. She was contesting the morality clause in court, claiming the evidence was manufactured by a deeply unstable daughter seeking vengeance after an emotional divorce. She even attached a psychiatric report I never knew existed, signed by a doctor I'd never met. Dated last year. Apparently, I had delusional paranoia and narcissistic traits. She had pre-written the character assassination. This wasn't defense. This was premeditated war. But what Eleanor didn't realize was that she'd given me a gift. That fake psychiatric report? It had Jeremy's signature authorizing its release. Meaning he had been in on it from the beginning, planting doubt. Staging consultations. Probably even helping Eleanor gather proof that I was spiraling. I laughed when I read it. Because it meant my next move would destroy them both. But first, I needed a witness. Someone who knew Eleanor inside and out, someone who had stood in her shadow longer than I had. So I called Aunt Delilah, her sister. Delilah had always been the black sheep, the one Eleanor called unsuitable because she wore loud prints and dated jazz musicians. But Delilah remembered everything. Including the night she found Eleanor in her robe, sneaking out the back door of a hotel in Asheville with Jeremy's cufflink still in her pocket. You never asked me before, Delilah said. Why now? Because I'm finally ready to burn her kingdom down, I replied. Delilah agreed to testify. But not just in court. On camera. We recorded the interview in her parlor. Red velvet wallpaper, jazz playing faintly, a martini in her hand. She spoke clearly, calmly, describing Eleanor's obsession, her manipulation, the way she would rehearse entire conversations before visiting me so she could plant the right seeds in Jeremy's mind. She talked about the time Eleanor cried in her car, whispering, "I loved him," before she ever did. That clip alone was enough to gut whatever was left of Eleanor's carefully preserved image. I edited the video that night. Added subtitles. Uploaded it to a private drive. Then I sent her the link. One word in the email, smile. The next morning, I found my front door wide open. No sign of forced entry, nothing stolen. Just a single stiletto heel on the hallway rug, white, leather, size 7. My mother's signature style. A message. She'd been in my home. So I checked the cameras. Not the ones she could see, the real ones. The ones I'd hidden behind bookshelves, inside fake plants, and in the vent above the fireplace. At 3:42 a.m., Eleanor entered using a key. My spare. She walked through my house like it was hers. Touched my perfume bottles. Opened drawers. Looked in the fridge. And then she sat on my couch and cried. Not pretty crying. Animal crying. Deep, guttural sobs. I watched her mouth one word over and over again, Jeremy. Not Clarissa. Not daughter. Just his name. I sat frozen watching it. My mother didn't love me. She never did. She loved what I had. And when I got it first, she took it. But she wasn't just crying from guilt. She was crying because she knew she was losing. I sent the footage to my lawyer and to Delilah. I sent it to the estate board. I even scheduled a copy to be emailed to every guest from her party if anything happened to me, just in case. The next time Eleanor called, she didn't yell. She whispered. You think you're winning, don't you? I'm not winning, I said calmly. I'm erasing you. Inch by inch. She exhaled sharply. You're still my daughter. Unfortunately for you, I said, I no longer care. And with that, I hung up. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a daughter can do is become the mother her mother never deserved. I always knew Jeremy would come back. Men like him always do, not because of love, not because they've grown, but because the silence starts to itch. The kind of silence left behind when the puppet strings snap and the puppeteer starts losing control. And Jeremy? He was never the puppeteer. He was just the favorite toy, used, polished, and passed around. It happened 2 weeks after I exposed Eleanor's betrayal at her birthday party. 2 weeks after I sent the estate board her confession. 2 weeks after I filed the official contest to her inheritance rights. That's when the knock came. I half expected it to be another lawyer, another attempt at intimidation. Instead, it was him. Jeremy. Same sharp jaw, same smug eyes, same cologne, sickly familiar. But his posture had changed. Shoulders hunched. Lips dry. He looked like a man who'd lost something. But not me. No, he looked like a man who'd lost her. I didn't know she'd take it that far, he said before I could even speak. I didn't move from the doorway. Didn't know who would take what how far? Eleanor. Your mother. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. I thought it was just emotional support. I never thought she was in love with me. I stared at him. You mean you didn't think I'd find out? No. That's not, Clarissa, listen. She twisted everything. I was isolated. You were always distant and, don't, I said coldly. Don't rewrite history to fit the story you need now. He blinked. I stepped back and motioned toward the kitchen. Come in. I have something to show you. He followed, cautiously, like a man entering a crime scene. The kitchen was spotless. Too spotless. Everything was in place except one object on the table, a printed transcript. I slid it toward him. He picked it up. What's this? Your private message archive. The one I downloaded from Eleanor's cloud. Scroll to July 3rd, read it out loud. He hesitated. Read it, I said, my voice ice. He cleared his throat. If you want me to convince Clarissa to sign the postnup, we need to make her feel unstable again. You're better at pushing her buttons than I am. Let's start the therapy charade next week. I'll find a sympathetic psychologist we can pay off. Silence. I watched his throat move as he swallowed hard. You hacked her? No, I replied. She used the same password she's used for 20 years. Violet Rose 65. You should have told her to change it after she used it for your hotel room bookings. He paled. I stepped closer, placing both hands on the table. You didn't just cheat. You conspired. You and my mother, together, tried to legally trap me in a postnup that would have stripped me of everything if you filed for divorce. But guess what, Jeremy? I never signed it. And now that I have your messages, her emails, and a sworn statement from your brother that he saw you two kissing in Asheville? You're done. He backed away, his voice cracking. I was manipulated. I didn't want to hurt you. She said you were already thinking of leaving, I laughed. A bitter, full-bodied laugh that echoed in the kitchen like a curse. She convinced you I was cruel. And you believed it. Not because you were brainwashed, Jeremy, but because you wanted to. Because it served you. He shook his head. I loved you. No, I said, opening the drawer beside me and pulling out a manila envelope. You loved what being with me gave you. Money. Access. Reputation. And when someone shinier whispered sweet poison in your ear, you let her rot me out of your life one whisper at a time. He didn't move as I slid the envelope toward him. What's this now? Your official deposition. I've named you in the estate fraud claim. If Eleanor lied to the board, she's guilty of perjury. But if she acted with your knowledge and help? That makes it collusion. He looked at me with desperation. Please, don't do this. I smiled gently. Oh, Jeremy. I'm not doing this. I've already done it. He left after that. But not before saying something that almost made me pity him. She's not okay, he muttered. Your mom. She's not sleeping. She's spiraling. I don't think she ever expected to lose you. I tilted my head. She never had me. When the door shut behind him, I didn't cry. Instead, I went upstairs, opened the camera feed to my mother's house. Yes, I had installed one, hidden in a clock I gave her for Christmas, and watched. She was alone in the living room. Sitting in a wedding gown. My gown. The one she had stolen from my storage unit months ago. She was stroking the lace, whispering his name. Jeremy. Jeremy. Over and over again. Not mine. Just his. And I knew then, this wasn't just betrayal. This was obsession. And obsession always ends in fire. I never thought I'd see my mother in a wedding dress again, especially not mine. Especially not whispering my husband's name into its folds like a prayer. I watched her through the hidden clock cam, her movements strange and ritualistic, like she was in some twisted dream only she understood. She had pulled the blinds shut in the middle of the day. The house was a mess, papers, cosmetics, wine bottles, half-eaten cake. Nothing like the perfectionist matriarch I grew up with. And yet, she looked peaceful. Like she believed the lie she'd crafted so deeply, her mind had no choice but to cradle it like a child. I recorded the footage. Not to humiliate her. Not yet. But to build a file. The kind you keep close until the timing is surgical. The next day, my lawyer sent me an urgent email. Eleanor had formally filed for emergency mental health guardianship over me. She was attempting to claim that I was mentally unfit, dangerous to myself and others, and should be legally monitored. The kicker? She'd submitted the same fake psychiatric report from before, this time with a notarized letter from Jeremy supporting it. It was laughable. It was desperate. But it was also dangerous. Because if the court granted a temporary injunction, even for a few weeks, she could legally freeze my assets, block my movement, and revoke my access to key estate documents. It was a chess move. And I had one day to counter it. I called Delilah. She's spiraling, I told her. She's gone full gone girl, but the grandmother version. Delilah didn't even sound surprised. She's been pretending for 65 years. That kind of pretending eventually splits the soul. I spent the entire night preparing evidence. I had footage of Eleanor talking to herself, wearing my wedding dress, replaying old voicemails from Jeremy and responding to them like he was still in the room. I had timestamped files, security cam footage from her sneaking into my house, and a voicemail she left on my phone just 3 nights ago, sobbing and saying, "You ruined everything, Clarissa." He loved me more. He told me he wished you were me. I submitted it all in a digital drive labeled mental state, private. The judge reviewed it that afternoon. The emergency guardianship motion was denied. But the court didn't stop there. They issued a preliminary investigation into Eleanor's mental competency regarding her control over the Vaughn estate. If she was declared unfit, her only child, would be given temporary conservatorship. It was happening. Slowly. Legally. Precisely. I didn't want to win with screaming. I wanted to win with silence. Like she always had. That night, I visited her house. She didn't know I was coming. I used the key she didn't know I still had. She was asleep on the couch, still in the dress, makeup smeared like war paint. The television was on loop, playing home videos, my childhood birthdays, our beach trips, Jeremy and I kissing under mistletoe, Eleanor smiling just beside us. Too close. Always too close. I didn't wake her. I just left a single note on the coffee table. It read, "You built a house of mirrors, Mother. Now look inside." The next morning, I got a call. It was her housekeeper, Ruth, sobbing. "Miss Clarissa, she smashed all the mirrors. Every single one. With her bare hands." My breath caught. "She's bleeding?" "Cut up bad," Ruth sniffled. Wouldn't let me help her. Just kept screaming that they were lying. That none of it was real. I hung up and slid to the floor. Not out of pity. Out of clarity. This wasn't just a broken woman anymore. This was a woman cracking apart, dangerously, irreparably. And that made her even more unstable. I called my lawyer and said the words I'd been saving. "It's time." Time for what? For the press. It only takes one spark to ignite a forest. In my case, it was a single headline, 5 words, no embellishment, no drama. Just the truth, naked and irreversible, socialite Eleanor Vaughn in affair scandal with son-in-law. I didn't release the footage to tabloids. That would have been too easy, too disposable. No. I sent it to a mid-level investigative podcast known for exposing high society corruption. The glass rose. They were hungry, precise, and slow-burning, just like I needed them to be. I gave them everything: audio, transcripts, the hotel receipts, the letters, and most damning of all, a silent video of Eleanor sitting in my wedding dress, whispering Jeremy's name like a woman lost in a fairy tale she wrote herself. They fact-checked for 2 weeks. And then they launched a 5-episode miniseries titled, Mother, Mistress, Matriarch, The Eleanor Vaughn Files. It broke the internet within 12 hours. Episode 1, The Poisoning of a Marriage, a deep dive into how Eleanor sowed distrust, fed Jeremy lies, and gradually broke my marriage from within. Episode 2, The Obsession Diaries, readings of her letters, including the infamous one where she wrote, "When I see her hand on your shoulder, I want to sever it." Episode 3, Fabricated Madness, the fake psychiatric report, the therapist who admitted he was paid to sign off, and my testimony. Episode 4, The White Gown Confession, the silent video, viewed over 3 million times in the first day. Episode 5, The Final Betrayal, my interview. Just me. One camera. One voice. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I said one line that haunted people. The worst thing my mother ever did wasn't falling in love with my husband, it was convincing me, for decades, that she was the only person who ever loved me. That line ended up on t-shirts. The internet divided like oceans. Some pitted Eleanor. Others called her delusional. A few tried to paint me as cruel, but the facts were too strong. Too raw. Too real. And Eleanor? She disappeared. Not in the physical sense. No, she was still in her house, though the windows were now covered in newspaper, and Ruth, the housekeeper, quit 3 days after the episodes aired. But socially, reputationally, psychologically, she vanished. Invitations to charities were rescinded. Her portrait was quietly taken down at the Women's League. Friends stopped calling. Neighbors avoided eye contact. The country club revoked her honorary membership. She became a ghost in pearls. But the story wasn't over. Not for her. Not for me. Because 3 days after the final episode dropped, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a velvet box. And inside the box, my wedding ring. Not from Jeremy. From Eleanor. With a note that said, "It was always meant for me. You just wore it first." I froze. My first instinct was to throw it across the room. My second was to scream. But instead, I set it on the mantel, next to a photo of my father. Because somewhere in the dark corners of my mother's mind, she thought this was love. It wasn't. It was possession. And possession, when denied, becomes obsession. I checked the clock cam footage that night. She was pacing, barefoot, clutching a framed photo of Jeremy from our wedding. Her eyes were wild. She muttered to herself. And then, she did something that chilled me to my core. She looked directly into the hidden camera. Not at the room. Not past it. Into it. And she smiled. As if she'd known all along. As if she was waiting for me to see it. And that's when I realized, the press hadn't broken her. It had awakened something far more dangerous. She wasn't done. She was starting over. And this time, she wasn't just trying to ruin my life. She was trying to replace me completely. Some people try to ruin your life. My mother? She tried to become it. After the podcast exploded and the ring arrived in that velvet box, I thought Eleanor would retreat into her shame. Hide. Disintegrate like most disgraced socialites do. But no. She wasn't shrinking, she was evolving. Reinventing. The woman who once wore silk gloves and judged people for putting cream in their coffee was now playing a whole different game. Not to win. But to erase me. It started with whispers, quiet ones that reached me through second-hand channels. That Eleanor was taking steps to clear her name. That she was filing defamation claims and working on a memoir. At first, I didn't pay much attention. She was spiraling, I thought. Throwing the last stones she had left. But then my accountant called. "Clarissa," he said. "Did you authorize a name change on your business account?" I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "There's a legal request filed in your name, Clarissa Evelyn Vaughn, to switch your business name, Vaughn Interiors, into a trust managed by E. Vaughn. The signature looks legit. But it's not your handwriting." I saw red. Cold, glittering red. Eleanor wasn't just lashing out, she was stealing my identity. Piece by piece. Trying to rewrite me from history. I rushed to my office. My laptop was open, but strange things had changed, files missing, emails gone, documents overwritten. I checked the login logs. Someone had accessed my cloud storage from my own IP address, the night I'd been out with my lawyer. That's when it hit me. She had a key. Not to my house, but to my life. Passwords, security questions, she knew them all. She'd helped me set them up years ago. Birthday. Middle name. Pet name. Favorite song. She'd practically written the encryption codes for the woman she was now trying to replace. And she had started long before the podcast ever aired. Because when I checked the courthouse records, I found something I hadn't seen before. A will. Not my father's. Mine. Filed and dated 3 months before Jeremy left me. A fake will. Crafted carefully. Legally structured. Signed in my name. Witnessed by strangers I didn't know. Leaving everything, to Eleanor Vaughn. Not even to Jeremy. To her. My blood turned to ice. This hadn't been spontaneous madness. It had been strategic erasure. A slow, precise campaign to kill me off, not with poison or violence, but with bureaucracy. So I did what any sane person would do. I broke into her house. At 2:47 a.m., dressed in black, gloves on, phone recording. I wasn't there to vandalize. I was there to recover what was mine. Evidence. Paper trails. Flash drives. Anything. What I found in her study made me sick. On the desk, a side-by-side comparison of our signatures. Pages of forged handwriting practice. A printed document titled Clarissa's Final Note, a fake suicide letter. I had to sit down. She was planning to kill me on paper. Declare me unstable, frame my death, take my legacy, and vanish into the identity of the woman she created. But she wasn't ready for one thing. I was already recording everything. I took photos, scanned documents, and left her house before the sun even rose. The next day, I called Delilah and Ruth, the former housekeeper. We filed a restraining order, submitted all new evidence to the estate court, and passed it on to the podcast team. They were stunned. They offered me a live interview. I said yes. And on national livestream, I said, my mother didn't just betray me. She tried to become me. And when I took back my life, she decided to erase it. I won't let her. And for the first time in my life, I meant every word. But Eleanor? She watched it all. And smiled. Because just when I thought I had stopped her, she filed for a legal name change. To Clarissa Evelyn Vaughn. There's a particular kind of madness that doesn't scream, it whispers in silk. That's what I felt when I saw the news clipping. Eleanor Vaughn, prominent socialite, legally changes name to Clarissa Evelyn Vaughn. The court had approved it. Somehow. Somewhere in the red tape, someone overlooked the glaring issue that I, the actual Clarissa Evelyn Vaughn, was still very much alive. Still very much me. But it didn't matter. Because Eleanor didn't just want the name. She wanted the life behind it. And she was already stepping into it. It started small. A magazine spotted Clarissa Vaughn at a luncheon hosted by the Garden District Women's Society. The same event I had been banned from attending, after the scandal broke. But there she was. In my seat. Wearing my signature navy coat. Hair styled like mine from a year ago. Laughing with people who once called me their friend. And no one questioned it. Because Eleanor looked like me, just 25 years older. And she'd been impersonating my voice long before she stole my name. I watched the footage. She didn't flinch. She referred to Jeremy as my late husband. She quoted lines from my old design articles. She even told the host she was building back her business after some unfortunate personal setbacks. My blood boiled. But it wasn't just social. It was legal. 3 days later, my bank froze one of my accounts. Why? Because the new Clarissa Vaughn had attempted to merge our portfolios, citing clerical error from divorce proceedings. Her forged documents were eerily accurate. She had everything. My signature, my SSN, my old passport copy. She had become me on paper, and I was now being treated as the imposter. Even my accountant hesitated. This is bad, he admitted. She's not just faking. She's replacing. I wanted to scream. Instead, I plotted. First, I contacted the Social Security office. Filed a fraud report. Then the passport office, then the state bar for impersonation, then the banks, then the property registry. One by one. Each one a battle. Every call ended with, "We're reviewing it." But time wasn't on my side. Because Eleanor had already filed a court petition to reclaim my house, claiming she was Clarissa Vaughn, sole resident. I had 3 days to prove I was me. 3 days to prove I existed. But how do you prove something so fundamental when the woman who gave birth to you knows all your secrets? The answer came from Ruth, the housekeeper. She showed up at my door with a shoebox of receipts, handwritten notes, and old videos from Eleanor's home. She made me burn a lot, Ruth said quietly. But I kept the things I knew might matter someday. Inside the box was gold. A birthday card from me to Eleanor, signed clearly in my handwriting, "Love you always, Mom, Clarissa." Timestamped. Pre-scandal. There were audio recordings of Eleanor talking to herself in the mirror, repeating my name. There was even an old voicemail I left on her phone, saying, "Mom, it's me, Clarissa. Please call back." I packaged it all and filed an emergency identity injunction. But I wasn't done. Because Eleanor was scheduled to speak at a local women's conference the next evening, as me. So I did what any betrayed daughter would do. I showed up. Dressed in black. Hair pulled back. Real ID in hand. Legal documents filed and ready. I stood in the back of the ballroom, watching her take the stage to applause. "Thank you," she purred into the mic. "I'm Clarissa Vaughn, designer, daughter, survivor." I stepped into the spotlight. "No, you're not." The room gasped. She froze. Just for a moment. Then smiled. "Well, look who's having a breakdown." I stepped forward, heart hammering. "I'm the real Clarissa Vaughn. And this woman is my mother. My name. My identity. My life, she's stolen all of it." Whispers spread like wildfire. I reached into my bag and pulled out a Bluetooth speaker. Hit play. Her voice filled the room. "She doesn't deserve him. She doesn't deserve that name." I raised her, "I can wear it better." It was her. Crystal clear. People stood. Phones came out. Her face began to crack. And just before security escorted her off the stage, she whispered as she passed me, "I'm still the one he loved." I didn't respond. Because Eleanor wasn't crazy. She was dangerous. And she wasn't done yet. But neither was I. If guilt is a rope, then sympathy is a net, and Eleanor knew how to entangle herself in both. The very next day after I exposed her at the women's conference, she vanished. No response. No public statement. Just silence. For 36 hours, social media was on fire. Half the country was disgusted. The other half was confused. Some of her supporters called it elderly mental illness, while others clung to the idea that I had fabricated everything. But the tide was finally shifting toward truth. Toward me. Until the headline dropped. "Clarissa Vaughn hospitalized following stroke, daughter says nothing." Except it wasn't me. It was Eleanor. And it wasn't a real stroke. It was a performance. I got the call from Ruth again, shaking and furious. "She staged the whole thing," she whispered. Called the ambulance herself, slurred her words, dropped to the floor. By the time they got there, she was pale and trembling like a ghost. But the second they turned the cameras off, she sat up and asked for her lipstick. My hands clenched the phone. "Where is she now?" "Private suite. Lakeside Memorial." She told the nurses not to let anyone named Clarissa in, said it was part of her recovery protection plan. She was trying to erase me again. This time, not with lies, but with pity. For a week, the news ran wild. Elderly woman driven to collapse by daughter's media campaign. Real Clarissa fights for dignity as daughter chases revenge. There were videos of her lying in a hospital bed, tubes in her arms, eyes vacant. Soft piano music in the background. Her lawyer gave tearful statements. She suffered enough. Her daughter's vendetta has become a national witch hunt. A witch hunt. I wanted to burn it all down. But my lawyer held me back. "Don't lash out. Let her play this game. And then we expose the script." So I waited. Watched. Planned. And that's when Jeremy showed up again. At my door. He looked different, tired, thinner. His hands trembled. "She's not just pretending," he said quietly. "She's dangerous now. She talks about you like you're the intruder in her life. Keeps calling me husband again. Said she wants to renew vows, told the nurses we're engaged." I stared at him. "You helped her build this madness." And now you're scared of it? He didn't deny it. I tried to leave her, he whispered. But she told the hospital I was her emergency contact. She even listed me as next of kin. They won't let me cut ties until she's declared mentally unfit. I stepped back. A cold realization forming. She doesn't want to die, I said. She wants to die as me. Jeremy's eyes widened. She told one of the nurses to make sure her death certificate says Clarissa Vaughn. She's planning something. I nodded slowly. She's not faking a stroke anymore. She's faking a funeral. And if I didn't stop her, she'd go through with it. She'd stage her death as me, get buried under my name, and leave the world remembering her as the martyr daughter who died heartbroken, while I was erased in the ashes. So I made a plan. I gathered every shred of evidence, video, audio, the conference tape, the forged will, the identity theft file, Ruth's testimony, and now Jeremy's. And I called a press conference. Live. Televised. Not for vengeance. For proof. I stood at that podium and said, "My name is Clarissa Evelyn Vaughn. I was born to a woman who raised me, controlled me, envied me, and eventually, tried to become me. She is now pretending to die in my name. This ends now. The truth isn't cruel. The truth is mine." And then I played a video on the screen behind me, hidden hospital footage Ruth had recorded on her phone. Eleanor, sitting up in bed, brushing her hair, whispering, "They'll cry when Clarissa dies. Even if it's not really her." The room went silent. I didn't have to say anything else. The world saw it for themselves. And finally, believed. After the press conference, everything moved fast. Too fast. The video of Eleanor whispering, "They'll cry when Clarissa dies," went viral in less than 6 hours. The hospital launched an internal investigation. The estate court paused her access to all Vaughn assets pending psychological review. And finally, the judge ordered an emergency psychiatric evaluation. For the first time in my life, my mother wasn't controlling the narrative. But monsters don't go down quietly. The evaluation was scheduled for Friday morning. Eleanor was to be transferred to Lakeside Psychiatric Wing. Supervised. Interviewed. Medicated if necessary. The court had appointed a state doctor, not someone she could bribe, manipulate, or seduce with charm. That was Thursday. By Friday morning at 9:42 a.m., I received a call from the hospital's legal office. "She's gone." I nearly dropped the phone. "What do you mean gone?" "She left through the front entrance. In a wheelchair. Dressed as a discharged cancer patient. Mask. Hat. Glasses. She switched IDs with another elderly patient. Security was bypassed." "Do you know where she went?" "No. We're tracking the cab driver now." "But Ms. Vaughn." "Eleanor, she's missing." My blood turned to ice. I ran to the drawer where I kept the key. The old key. The one from my childhood home, the red-painted Victorian outside Charleston. The house my parents built when they were still in love. The house my father died in. The house Eleanor refused to sell even after she moved. I hadn't been there in years. But deep in my gut, I knew. That's where she'd gone. I drove through the afternoon storm. Thunder cracked over the trees like a warning. My tires hit gravel and mud as I pulled into the overgrown driveway. The house looked like a relic, tilted, faded, but still holding itself together like a woman who refused to age. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. I stepped inside, heart pounding. The air smelled like dust, lavender oil, and something sweetly rotting. I passed the grand staircase, the dusty chandelier, the wall where my height was once marked in pencil beside my father's crooked lines. I heard her before I saw her. She was upstairs. In the master bedroom. Humming. I crept up the steps. Each creak sent lightning up my spine. At the landing, I turned right, reached the door, and pushed it open. She was standing at the mirror. Wearing white. Not a wedding dress this time. A hospital gown. Her back was to me. Her gray hair was combed, pinned with one of my childhood barrettes. The bed behind her was made perfectly. 2 pillows fluffed. A bottle of champagne sat chilling in a rusted ice bucket on the nightstand. And beside it? My baby album. Pages open. Pictures of me as a child. With her. With my father. With Jeremy. All slashed with red lipstick. She turned around slowly. And smiled. "Clarissa," she whispered. "I was wondering when you'd come home." I stepped in, the door creaking behind me. "You need help." "I need peace," she said softly, walking to the bed and sitting. "I thought maybe, if I died here, they'd remember me the way I wanted. In this house. With you." I shook my head, tears burning behind my eyes. "You tried to replace me. You tried to erase me." She nodded. Not even denying it. "Because you were always better. Smarter. Prettier. And he chose you." "Jeremy?" I scoffed. "You destroyed us both." She reached out, pulling something from beneath the pillow. A photograph. Torn in half. Jeremy and me, on our wedding day. Only Jeremy's half remained. "I still have a chance," she said, staring at it. "If I can just make them forget you." I stepped closer. Gently. "You can't make the world forget me, Mother." She looked up. Eyes glassy. Face haunted. "No. But maybe if you disappear too, we'll finally be even." And suddenly, I saw the knife. Small. Hidden in her sleeve. Not at me. At herself. I lunged. We struggled. Hands flailing, skin scraping. And then, I grabbed the knife. Wrested it free. She fell back, sobbing. Not wounded. Not yet. But broken. Truly broken. She stared at the ceiling, lips trembling. "I didn't want to become you," she whispered. "I just didn't want to be me anymore." I called 911. Sat beside her until the sirens arrived. And when they placed her on the stretcher, she didn't resist. Just kept whispering my name. Like it was hers. Eleanor didn't scream when they wheeled her out of the house. She didn't look back at me. She just stared ahead, eyes wide, as if watching a future only she could see. I stood in the rain-soaked driveway, drenched in sweat and storm water, arms scraped from the struggle. The ambulance pulled away. I should have felt relief. But all I felt was the silence she left behind. The house groaned around me like a memory collapsing in real time. The floorboards we stepped on as children. The staircase where I took prom photos. The dusty piano she never let me touch unless I'd practiced scales. I should have walked away and never looked back. But some broken instinct I didn't understand, kept me rooted to the floor. And that's when I remembered the attic. It had been off limits for years. Even when she moved out, Eleanor warned me, "Don't go up there, Clarissa. It's full of junk and dust and old grief." But Eleanor never let go of grief. She fed it. Protected it. And grief protected secrets. I climbed the stairs slowly, flashlight in hand. The attic door groaned open like a scream stuck in its throat. Cobwebs kissed my face. The air was thick, like breathing through parchment. I pulled the chain for the overhead light, and the room flickered into view. Boxes. Hundreds of them. Labeled neatly in her handwriting, Winter 1984, Paris trip, CL's 10th B-day, Jeremy, legal, CL therapy. And then I saw it. A maroon folder, tucked between medical, mother and estate planning. It wasn't labeled. Just, my name. Not in handwriting. Typed. Clarissa Vaughn, primary. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were dozens of documents, some familiar, most chilling. A forged birth certificate, listing Eleanor Vaughn as both mother and father. A school record showing me withdrawn in 1997 and re-enrolled with a new ID. An unsigned affidavit claiming I had been adopted under duress. Copies of old journals, mine, but rewritten in her handwriting, signed Clarissa. Photos of me, altered. Cut and paste collages with her face where mine should be. And then, at the very back, a letter. Unsent. Addressed to Jeremy. My dearest, if anything ever happens to me, please make sure she never finds this folder. Clarissa is becoming unstable. She talks like someone else lives in her body. If she starts accusing me of things, don't believe it. You and I know the truth. I was always the real one. I dropped the folder. Backed away from it like it was a snake. This wasn't just identity theft. This was a full psychological rewrite. My mother had spent years, maybe decades, subtly building a trail that suggested I was the fake one. A ghost child she'd invented. And if things had gone just a little differently, if I'd lost my footing, or been hospitalized, or cracked under pressure, she had the paper trail ready. To erase me for good. I took photos of everything. Scanned the folder. Uploaded it to 3 cloud drives. Because this wasn't over. Eleanor might be locked behind a hospital door now, but her fingerprints were everywhere. The next morning, I called the hospital. I wanted to speak with her. Not to forgive. Not even to scream. But to ask why. They hesitated. Then transferred me. She answered on the second ring. Hello? Her voice, small. Innocent. It's me, I said. Silence. Then, the original. I swallowed hard. I found the folder. I wondered when you would, she said quietly. I need to understand. Why, all of this? She exhaled. Because Clarissa. I didn't know how to be loved. So I made a version of me that could be. You mean me. I mean the best parts of me I saw in you. The rest. I tried to edit. I couldn't speak. You became everything I was supposed to be, she whispered. And I couldn't live with that. I ended the call. Not with hate. Not with anger. But with a strange, bitter clarity. I wasn't her daughter. I was her mirror. And she spent her whole life trying to smash it. The maroon folder burned in my mind like a fever I couldn't sweat out. It was more than evidence, it was a confession, written in the language of obsession. After scanning and logging every document into my legal archive, I did what I'd been preparing for since this all began. I filed for permanent conservatorship over Eleanor Vaughn. My petition was airtight. Medical records showing her mental deterioration. The attempted identity theft, proven through forensic document analysis. Audio of her stating, I was always the real one. Her staged death plans, the forged suicide note, the hospital escape, the struggle in the attic, the knife. And now, this file. A trail of planned erasure. By all definitions of the law, she was unfit to control her estate, make legal decisions, or own property unsupervised. I wasn't just trying to protect my name anymore. I was trying to survive it. The court gave us a hearing date, 3 weeks out. That would normally be plenty of time. But nothing about Eleanor's world was normal. And 2 days later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. Cream envelope. No return address. Inside was a single sentence, I knew your mother when she was Evelyn Reed. And you are not the first daughter she's tried to erase. I blinked. Who the hell was Evelyn Reed? I flipped the page. A phone number. An old New York area code. My hand shook as I called. It rang 5 times before a voice answered. Male. Older. This is Charles. Hi. I received a letter. About Eleanor Vaughn, Evelyn Reed? A pause. Long. Then, who are you to her? I'm her daughter. Another pause. No. You're her second. My heart stopped. What? Meet me. I'm in Charleston for the week. I'll explain everything. Bring no one. And don't tell her you called. He gave me a time. A coffee shop off King Street. Noon tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. I combed every record I could find. Birth registries. Marriage licenses. No Evelyn Reed linked to Eleanor. But I knew her full name was Eleanor Evelyn Vaughn. So what if Eleanor Vaughn was a name she made up? At 11:58 a.m., I walked into the cafe. It was quiet, sunlight cutting through dusty windows like a spotlight on memory. A man sat in the corner. Late 70s, gray suit, cane resting against the table. He stood when he saw me. You look just like her. But softer. She was always sharp around the edges. Who are you? I asked, my voice low. My name is Charles Marrow. I knew Eleanor in 1975. Back then, she went by Evelyn. Evelyn Reed. She lived in Brooklyn, claimed she was a dancer. But she was already hiding things. She had a daughter. I sat down. A daughter before me? He nodded slowly. Her name was Clara. Beautiful girl. Maybe 10 when I met her. Quiet. Always reading. Eleanor, Evelyn, treated her like a doll she didn't want. One day, Clara vanished. Vanished? I whispered. Gone. Just gone. Evelyn said she'd sent her to boarding school in Connecticut. But the neighbors said they heard screaming the night before. Police came. No charges. No investigation. Just a missing file. She moved a week later. Changed her name. Said she was starting fresh. And she did. I stared at him, blood cold in my veins. And you're just telling me this now? I didn't know she was still alive. I didn't know she had a new daughter. Until I saw the podcast. Heard your voice. You sounded like Clara. I swallowed hard. Do you think Clara's still alive? He looked down at his coffee, eyes haunted. I don't know. But you should find out. Before she tries to rewrite you, too. I left the cafe dazed. This changed everything. What if Eleanor hadn't just erased me? What if she had done this before? And gotten away with it? Back home, I pulled up an ancestry database. Typed in the name, Clara Reed. New York. Born around 1965. 2 results. 1 deceased. 1 living in rural Pennsylvania. I stared at the name. Clara M. Halstead. And beside it, a grainy photo. My jaw dropped. Because the woman in the photo? She looked like me. But older. Tired. Like someone who had lost everything, and learned never to speak of it. The drive to Pennsylvania felt like crossing into another lifetime. The farther I got from Charleston, the more the memories blurred, the press conference, the courtroom filings, the scent of Eleanor's perfume, the sound of her voice whispering my name like she was summoning it for herself. And now? Clara. The name haunted me. The thought that I wasn't the first. That I had never been the only. It took 4 hours, 3 wrong turns, and 1 panic attack in a gas station bathroom to finally pull up to the small brick house on the edge of a wooded cul-de-sac. Modest. Quiet. Like someone had picked the most invisible place on the map to disappear into. I stepped out of the car, heart pounding against my ribs like fists on a locked door. She answered after the second knock. I froze. She looked like me. Not exactly. But enough. The shape of her chin. The sharpness of her eyes. The way she held her shoulders like someone expecting to be blamed for something she didn't do. Can I help you? She asked, guarded. My name is Clarissa Vaughn, I said. I think. I think we have the same mother. She blinked. Slowly. Then opened the screen door. Come in. The living room was small, neat, filled with old books and worn furniture. No family photos. No art. Just a fireplace with cold ashes and a clock that ticked too loud. She sat across from me, hands folded like a student waiting to be tested. I haven't heard that name in 40 years, she said quietly. Eleanor Vaughn. But when I knew her, she was Evelyn Reed. I nodded. She changed it. Erased it. And tried to erase me too. Clara studied me. And you're her daughter? Yes, I whispered. Legally. Technically. Biologically. I don't even know anymore. I found a folder. Documents. Photos. And then I found you. Her face didn't change. Not even when I said her name. She told everyone I was in a boarding school, Clara said finally. But the truth is, I ran. After what she did to my father. Your father? Clara's jaw tightened. He wasn't rich. Not powerful. Just a quiet man who worked 2 jobs and loved me more than air. She told him I wasn't his. That I was some stranger's mistake. She turned him against me until he left. Then she told me it was my fault. That I ruined her chances at a real life. My throat tightened. She burned my baby photos, Clara continued. Told neighbors I was unstable. That I hurt animals. That I screamed in my sleep. She made me think I was a monster. Until I found a letter. From my father. Hidden in the closet. Saying he loved me. Saying he knew I wasn't lying. I reached across the table, tears brimming. She did the same to me, I whispered. She stole my husband. Tried to erase me. Then tried to become me. Clara let out a bitter laugh. Of course she did. She doesn't want daughters. She wants mirrors. And when the reflection gets too real, she smashes it. We sat in silence. 2 women. 2 victims. 2 ghosts trying to remember they were real. Finally, Clara stood. Walked to a drawer. Pulled out a small brown envelope. I was going to burn this, she said, placing it in my hand. But maybe you'll need it more than I do. I opened it. Inside were photos. Young Eleanor, Evelyn, posing with different men. Different cities. Different names scribbled on the back. One had her holding a baby in her arms. Not Clara. Not me. A third. A name written in a sharp black pen, Miranda. 1970, I looked up at Clara. Who's Miranda? Clara shook her head. She wouldn't tell me. Just said, that one didn't cry much. I think she left her somewhere. Or worse. The room spun. Do you think there were more? I asked. Clara stared at me. Yes. I drove home in silence. The folder sat on my passenger seat. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I realized I hadn't been fighting for my identity. I'd been fighting to survive a legacy of destruction. And the woman who created me? She had done this before. And she would do it again. Unless I stopped her, for good. The courtroom was quiet, too quiet for what it was about to hold. I sat in the front row, hands folded tight over my skirt, documents in one hand, my voice in the other. To my left sat Clara Halstead. Her presence alone changed the air, like truth had taken human form. 40 years of silence in her posture. 40 years of pain etched around her eyes. Eleanor, Evelyn, was wheeled in by hospital staff. Clean. Composed. Her hair curled. Her expression tight. No signs of breakdown now. Just the same face she used on the church steps and gala banquets. The matriarch mask, polished and weaponized. She didn't look at us. Not even once. The judge entered. Banged the gavel. The court was called to order. My attorney, a woman named Sophia Becker, sharp-tongued and iron-spined, stood and laid it all out: attempted identity theft, forged legal documents, a fabricated will and suicide note, a staged hospital breakdown, psychological warfare against me, her daughter, evidence of a prior daughter erased from all public record. The judge glanced at the thick stack of files. Then his eyes moved to Eleanor. "Mrs. Vaughn," he said, "do you contest the authenticity of the evidence?" Eleanor's smile was calm. "I don't recognize the woman claiming to be my daughter." The room shifted. A gasp somewhere in the gallery. "Which one?" the judge asked. Eleanor blinked. "Excuse me?" "You said the woman. But there are two before you. Clarissa and Clara. Which one don't you recognize?" Eleanor's lips parted. But no sound came. Clara stood. "I'm not asking to be your daughter again," she said firmly. "I'm asking to be acknowledged as the one you tried to destroy before her." The judge turned to her. "And you're prepared to testify?" "I have already submitted a sworn affidavit," Clara said, voice steady. "I brought photo evidence, letters, and 2 neighbors from Brooklyn who remember my disappearance." Eleanor scoffed. "This is a coordinated smear campaign. That woman is not related to me." Clara reached into her purse. Pulled out a photo. It was old. Folded. Creased at the corners. It showed a little girl standing beside Eleanor, smiling, holding her hand. The resemblance was undeniable. The little girl was Clara. The judge held the photo up. "Do you deny this is you?" Eleanor's jaw clenched. Her fingers gripped the side of her chair. "Photos can be faked." Sophia Becker rose again. "Your Honor, if I may, there's a second document. We held it until today. A DNA test, done last week, between Clarissa Vaughn and Clara Halstead. Half-sibling match. 99.6%. The courtroom exploded in murmurs. The judge silenced them with a firm bang of the gavel. "Mrs. Vaughn. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you take it." Eleanor didn't. She rose, slowly. Without support. Her voice cracked like old glass. "You all want me to be the villain. Fine. Let me be the villain. But don't pretend these girls didn't benefit from the life I gave them. I shaped them. I refined them. They were mine." "You tried to become me," I said, standing. "You were becoming me," she snapped. "The more you aged, the more you looked like her." The way he touched her hand. "I saw myself in you." "You saw someone to control," I said. "You've always seen us as clay to be molded, not daughters." "I made you," she hissed. "And I can unmake you too." The judge cut in. "That's enough." Eleanor sat. And for the first time I saw it. Not rage. Not madness. Emptiness. Like something inside her had finally accepted it was finished. That afternoon, the court granted me full conservatorship. They froze Eleanor's estate, nullified all forged documents, and scheduled a full psychological competency hearing. Clara was acknowledged on record as her biological daughter, and the court opened an investigation into her disappearance and Eleanor's history of identity fraud. But none of that compared to what happened after the ruling. As the court emptied, I stood alone with Clara. Eleanor was being escorted back to the hospital wing. And just before she left the room, she turned. Looked at us both. And for the first time since I was born, she said the truth. "I don't know how to love," she whispered. Then she was gone. And neither of us cried. There's something about walking into your childhood home with your half-sister beside you, both daughters of the same woman, both wounded in different timelines. Clara and I didn't speak much as we unlocked the door to the red Victorian outside Charleston. The air was heavy with ghosts, and the walls held their breath. The house had been sealed since the conservatorship ruling. Official notices on the door. Dust floating through slanted sunlight like unsettled memories. We stepped inside together, our feet echoing where Eleanor's lies once lived. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was charged. Like the house itself knew we'd come to bury the story. "Do you feel it?" Clara whispered. I nodded. Yes. Like something still watching. We moved through the rooms, kitchen, parlor, dining room. Everything was still exactly how she left it. Her perfume bottle sat uncapped on the hallway dresser. My childhood photos, some real, some altered, still hung on the walls. In the study, the typewriter Eleanor once used to rewrite my diaries still waited on the desk, a sheet of blank paper curled into its teeth. But it was upstairs, in the master bedroom, where we found the final truth. Clara paused at the door. She used to scream in her sleep when I was little, she said. I thought it was nightmares. Now I think, it was memory. We entered. And just like the courtroom, the bed was made. Hospital gown folded. Champagne bucket empty. But something was off. Clara walked to the fireplace. Ran her hand along the mantel. Her fingers stopped on a loose brick. She looked at me. Without a word, we pulled it free. Behind it was a hollow space, and inside, wrapped in yellowed silk, was a leather-bound journal. Old. Thin. The initials ER embossed on the corner. Eleanor Reed. Clara opened the first page. The handwriting was young, rushed, spiraling. I am not who I am. I never have been. Every time I feel love, I panic. Every time I am touched, I lie. There was a baby. And another. And another. All of them felt like threats. I gave them pieces of me, but they always took too much. Page after page, names, half crossed out. Descriptions of men she'd seduced, used, discarded. Thoughts about motherhood written like war poetry. Clara never cried when I hit her. She just looked at me like she knew I was the one who needed punishing. It scared me. I thought babies were supposed to love you. She didn't. Clarissa is too perfect. She has everything I wanted. If I take it all back, slowly, gently, maybe she'll fade. Maybe I'll become her, and no one will miss the difference. My throat closed. She hadn't just lost control. She had documented her descent. Strategized it. Planned each erasure like chapters in a book. Toward the end, one page was written in red ink. It was titled, If They Survive Me. If they find this journal, they'll want to know why. Why I did what I did. Why I destroyed what I built. But the truth is, I was never building. I was unbuilding. Myself. My reflection. My daughters. Love made me hollow. And hollow women don't raise children. They raise replacements. I hope they burn this. Or maybe. I hope they read it and understand. I never hated you. I hated that you didn't need me to become beautiful. We sat in silence. The room didn't breathe. Do we burn it? Clara asked. No, I whispered. And then I opened to the last page. Blank. Empty. Waiting. I picked up the pen she used to lie. And I wrote the truth. Her name was Clara. Mine is Clarissa. We survived her. We resealed the journal in the brick. Not to hide it. But to bury it where it belonged. In the bones of the house that made us. I thought I had one. After the courtroom. After the journal. After everything. I thought it was over. Eleanor was tucked away in a long-term psychiatric care facility, diagnosed, medicated, and, for the first time, monitored by someone other than her own reflection. I had full conservatorship. Clara and I had signed documents giving her protection from further legal erasure. The Vaughn estate was under my name. The court had recognized Eleanor's manipulations as a pattern. Her lies as deliberate. Her mind as fractured. But just when the dust began to settle, another envelope arrived. No name on the front. Just my address. Inside? A copy of a birth certificate. Issued in 1992. Mother, Eleanor Evelyn Vaughn. Father, unknown. Child's name, Miranda Elise Vaughn. Attached was a notarized letter from a Philadelphia law firm. To Clarissa Vaughn, this is formal notification that Miranda Elise Vaughn, biological daughter of Eleanor Evelyn Vaughn, has filed an injunction against the current estate conservator. She claims to be the rightful heir of Eleanor Vaughn's trust and is seeking 50% of the total estate value as a pre-designated beneficiary. She has agreed to DNA testing. Levine, Arnett and Royce. I stared at the paper. The name. Miranda. From the photo in Clara's envelope. The baby Eleanor once referred to as the one who didn't cry. Clara called as if on cue. You got the letter? Yes. She's real. I swallowed hard. How do we know this isn't another one of Eleanor's stories come to life? We don't. But if it is, she's not the one controlling it anymore. I did my research. Fast. Levine, Arnett and Royce was legitimate. Their attorney had represented high-profile heirs in contested estate battles before. Miranda Elise Vaughn had a social presence, minimal but traceable. A photographer. Early 30s. Private Instagram. Based in Baltimore. Her photo showed a tall woman with dark hair, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that looked familiar. But there was no malice in her expression. Just distance. Like someone raised in shadow, now blinking into the sun. The court scheduled a hearing in 10 days. DNA testing would be required of all surviving daughters for the record, me. Clara. Miranda. I wasn't afraid of the science. But I was afraid of what she wanted. So I did something I hadn't done since this started. I called Eleanor. They patched me through to her psychiatric wing. She answered with silence. Then, Clarissa. Did you enjoy the attic? I read everything, I said. You documented your entire descent like a memoir. She chuckled. So literary of me. Who is Miranda? A pause. Long enough to feel like a scream. Then, she was the one I gave away before she could take me with her. You never told anyone. Why would I? She was quiet. Easier to forget. I wanted to scream. But I stayed calm. She's coming for your estate. Eleanor didn't respond. Then she whispered, of course she is. I raised her from afar. Even without touching her. What does that mean? It means I made her believe she was owed something. And now, she'll try to take it from you. Just like you took it from me. She hung up. I stared at the silence. And realized, this was her final game. Not identity theft. Not legacy. But division. She planted us like seeds in different soil. Watered us with whispers. And now she was letting us bloom into enemies. The day before the hearing, I received a letter. Not from the law firm. From Miranda. Handwritten. Clean cursive. Clarissa, I never knew who she was. I grew up in foster care. I found her name on my birth certificate when I turned 18. She never called. Never visited. But I started watching the news recently. I saw your story. I don't want her money. I want answers. Miranda, I exhaled. Hard. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to hope, maybe the last daughter she abandoned wasn't here to fight. Maybe she was here to heal. I agreed to meet Miranda in person the morning before the court hearing. Neutral ground. A botanical garden just outside Baltimore. Clara couldn't come, she was still recovering emotionally from reliving her trauma on legal record, but she gave me her blessing and a single sentence before I left. If Miranda is anything like us, She'll be searching for the part of herself our mother tried to kill. I arrived at the gardens early. The sky was soft gray, and a breeze whispered through rows of lavender and wild roses. I stood by the iron gate at the east entrance, scanning faces. Watching. Waiting. And then I saw her. She walked with quiet confidence. No heels, no makeup, no pretense. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun. A camera slung over her shoulder. And when she saw me, she didn't smile. She just stopped. Like she'd found a mirror with a different scar. "Clarissa," she said, holding out her hand. "Miranda." We shook. Lightly. Briefly. Then walked into the garden together, neither of us speaking until we reached the koi pond. The water shimmered beneath our silence. "She lied to both of us," Miranda finally said. "To all three of us," I replied. She glanced at me. "Clara." I nodded. "You look like her." "She looks like you," Miranda countered. "I guess we all look like someone Eleanor once pretended to be." Miranda pulled a folded envelope from her bag. This was in my adoption file. It's why I started digging after I saw the podcast. It's written by her. I opened it. The letter was typed, dated 1994. "To whom it may concern, this child is not suitable for me. She has my eyes and none of my heart. I fear she will grow into something that erases me. I want no contact. Please do not disclose this letter to the child. EEV." My hands trembled as I read. "She signed away her love like a business agreement," I whispered. "I always wondered why I felt like I didn't belong," Miranda said quietly. "I thought maybe I was just one of those unwanted kids. But then I saw you. Online. Talking about the forged will. The identity theft. I realized, she didn't just erase me. She rewrote me." I sat down on a bench. "You know she made a file about me? A plan to replace me completely. Fake my death. Take my name. She had journals describing how she hated that I reminded her of who she wasn't." Miranda sat beside me. "And Clara?" "She disappeared at 10. Eleanor told everyone she was at boarding school. But she'd run away. After our mother convinced her that she had made her father leave. That she was cursed." Miranda looked away. "She's a parasite." "No," I said. "Parasites feed off something. Eleanor built us. Then tried to destroy us when we stopped reflecting her image." Miranda handed me another envelope. "This is for the court. I'm waiving my claim. I don't want her money. I want no part of what she poisoned. But I do want something else." I met her eyes. "What?" "I want to meet Clara. And I want to know who I could have been. Not who she wanted me to be." Something cracked in my chest. A warmth I hadn't felt since before Jeremy, before Eleanor's letters, before the lies. "I'll take you to her," I said. That evening, the three of us sat in my living room. Miranda. Clara. Me. No wine. No laughter. Just tea, quiet breaths, and too many years between us. We talked. About the mothers we needed. About the women we became instead. About the ways Eleanor fractured us, and the ways we survived her. "I think she tried to build a perfect daughter," Miranda said. "No," Clara whispered. "She tried to delete the ones she couldn't control." I nodded. "But she failed. We're still here. 3 daughters. 1 broken lineage. But together, finally real." The court ruled in my favor. Permanently. The judge reviewed Miranda's official waiver, Clara's testimony, and the forensic records from Eleanor's forged documents. My full conservatorship was solidified. The estate officially passed into my care, and Eleanor was barred from initiating any further legal actions without full psychiatric review and third-party approval. It should have been the end. The media called it a victory. A reckoning. A triumph of daughters reclaiming truth from a woman who spent her life spinning lies. But they didn't know Eleanor Vaughn. They didn't know that even in a locked ward, she still knew how to move the chessboard. 3 days after the court ruling, I received a call from Clara. Her voice was shaking. She called me. What? She got access to a patient phone. Said she had something she needed to say. She was calm. Too calm. I felt it immediately, the return of that icy awareness. Eleanor wasn't done. I called the hospital. Demanded a review of her outgoing communications. That's when I learned she had been corresponding with someone on the outside. A man named Anthony Reed. No relation on file. No friend of mine. Not mentioned in any family history. I asked for the log. Dozens of letters. Weekly. Sometimes daily. And in one of them, the latest one, Eleanor had written, "If they won't let me finish what I started, you must. Find the journal. Find the other girl. Clarissa must lose what she stole." I was frozen. The other girl. She didn't mean Clara. She didn't mean Miranda. She meant me, but not me. She meant the version of herself she tried to create inside me. She was asking him to destroy me, so she could live through him. I went straight to the hospital. Demanded to see her. They escorted me to room 27. Sterile. Dim. Eleanor sat in a chair by the window, legs crossed, humming some ancient lullaby I hadn't heard since I was 6. She looked at me. Not surprised. Not angry. Just curious. "You finally came." I didn't sit. I stood over her like a truth she couldn't rewrite. "Who is Anthony Reed?" She smiled. "Someone who loves me the way you never could. You sent him after me." "I sent him to finish the story," she said, tilting her head. "You're trying to end it with healing. With forgiveness." That's not how I wrote it. My blood ran cold. "You sent him to hurt me. I sent him to remind you that no matter what you take, what you win, what you bury, I still live in you. You were my best chapter. And no one forgets a good ending." I turned to leave. Then paused. And said the words I'd waited my whole life to say, "You are no longer the author of my life." As I left, she began humming again. Not the lullaby. A wedding march. Like she was marrying herself to my memory. I filed an emergency protective order that night. Miranda and Clara were both moved into secure housing temporarily. Police flagged Anthony Reed's name. Traced it. Former patient. Paranoid delusions. Brief romantic relationship with Eleanor at her previous care center. And then we found the worst of it. He'd visited my old house. Twice. Left a note on the porch, "The real Clarissa lives inside. Soon, she'll be free." I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. Because Eleanor didn't need to leave the hospital to hurt us. She just needed someone desperate enough to believe her story. And Anthony? Was ready to write the final chapter in blood. There comes a point where survival is no longer enough. Where truth isn't just something you speak, it's something you stage. Eleanor had written our lives like fiction for decades, twisting memories into manipulation and love into leverage. But now? Now, it was our turn to tell the story. Not from behind locked doors or legal documents, but in the open. With lights. With cameras. With every page she tried to tear from our lives pinned back up for the world to see. And we knew exactly how to do it. Miranda had the platform, her photography circles were full of media contacts, art reporters, and trauma advocates. Clara had the documents, her story, the records, the missing person reports long buried but now resurfaced. I had the public eye from the podcast, the court case, the press conference. The world already knew Eleanor Vaughn was a liar. They just didn't know why. So we invited them in. A livestream special. The Daughters of Eleanor, what she tried to erase. We scheduled it for a Saturday night. Prime time. Promoted it across every platform. The teaser trailer was just a whisper of Eleanor's voice from the hospital tapes, "I still live in her." The internet lit up. People speculated. Commented. Some said we were exploiting her. Some said we were brave. We didn't care. Because this wasn't about Eleanor anymore. It was about taking back the story. And we had one more reason to act fast. Anthony Reed. He'd been spotted again. Near my office this time. Dark coat, sunglasses, carrying a notebook. He approached one of my interns and asked where Clarissa Vaughn worked. I filed another report. And then I realized something Eleanor had always known: stalkers don't vanish on paper. They vanish with exposure. So we added a final segment to the stream. A live confrontation. We invited Anthony to the event under the guise of supporting Eleanor's legacy. We knew he wouldn't say no. He wanted his part in the story. He believed he was protecting her. Honoring her final wish. He showed up early. Thin. Nervous. Eyes darting like someone who'd memorized the wrong script. We had plainclothes officers stationed at every door. Miranda greeted him with a handshake and a warm smile. Clara offered him tea. And I brought him on stage. Live. I asked one question: why do you believe Eleanor wanted me destroyed? He blinked under the lights. Because she said you were never meant to exist. That you were the lie. And yet, I'm standing here. She said that's what made it dangerous. I leaned forward, speaking directly to him, but through him, to every viewer watching. My mother didn't want love. She wanted obedience. She didn't want daughters, she wanted reflections. But reflections don't speak. And we're speaking now. Loudly. Anthony began to tremble. We played a pre-recorded clip Eleanor had sent him. She's pretending to be me. You have to make her stop. You're the only one left who sees me clearly. The audio was warped, desperate. The crowd hushed. And then, Miranda stepped forward. No, Anthony, she said gently. You were never protecting her. You were protecting the version of her she wanted to be. Clara joined her. And that version only exists when the rest of us stay silent. Anthony's face collapsed. Not in rage. In realization. Tears welled in his eyes. I didn't know. Security moved to escort him. But he didn't resist. I didn't know, he kept repeating. Afterward, the stream went viral. Over 12 million views in 48 hours. Eleanor's name trended again, but not as a heroine. As a warning. A symbol. Of how manipulation wears the mask of motherhood. The next day, the psychiatric facility revoked all of Eleanor's outside communication privileges. She would never write another letter again. We gathered that night, Clara, Miranda, and I, on my back porch. No cameras. No audience. Just sisters. Do you think she watched it? Miranda asked. I shook my head. No. But she felt it. How do you know? Clara whispered. I looked toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to rise. Because for the first time in her life, she couldn't change the ending. We returned to the house one last time. No lawyers. No letters. No court orders. Just the three of us, Clara, Miranda, and me, walking into the place where it had all started. Not to reclaim it. Not even to cleanse it. But to bury what she left behind. The red Victorian was quiet now. The conservatorship had passed it into my name, but I never moved back in. Some places are meant to be remembered in ash, not repainted. We didn't bring anything but flowers and 3 small journals, blank ones. We stood in the front room, where Eleanor used to arrange orchids and whisper manipulations like they were prayers. Where she told me my husband didn't love me, where she burned Clara's letters, where she wrote off Miranda before she could speak her first words. It was cold. But not empty. We lit a fire in the fireplace. Clara laid out old photos. Miranda placed the maroon journal, the one Eleanor kept buried in the bricks, on the mantel. I sat in the same chair my mother once did, and I looked at my sisters. "Do you want to write something?" I asked. They nodded. Each of us opened our blank journals. Not to document pain. Not to trap memories. But to speak the things we never got to say when she was watching. Clara wrote, "You didn't break me. You built a silence I learned to survive. And now, I'm louder than you ever imagined." Miranda wrote, "I never needed your love. I only needed the truth. And I found it, in them." I wrote, "You said I was a reflection. But the only thing I reflect now, is light." We tore the pages out and tossed them into the fire. Not to destroy them. To release them. The paper curled. Burned. Disappeared. And we stood together, the three of us, no longer daughters of Eleanor Vaughan. Just women. Real. Bruised. Breathing. When we walked out of the house, I didn't look back. None of us did. Because the story had finally ended. And for once, we were the ones who wrote it. To those of you who stayed with us through this story, I want to say this: we all carry scars from the people who raised us. Some heal clean. Some stay tender. But the only way we break the cycle is by telling the truth, even when it shakes. So here's my question to you: what part of yourself did you have to fight to keep? Drop your answers in the comments. I want to know where you're from, and what part of this story echoed in your life. And if this touched you, please like, share, and subscribe my channel. It helps us tell the stories that matter. The ones people are afraid to say out loud. Thank you for listening. This was Clarissa Vaughan's story. But maybe, it was yours too.